Lesson 11. Acknowledging a higher power. There are two kinds of attitudes in this world. The one is to see everything in ordinary terms, and the other is to look at everything in extraordinary terms. And the difference between people who accomplish great things and those who are mediocre can be seen that those who are mediocre are always seeing things in terms of the lowest possible common denominator, the lowest, the most average possible explanation. And those who accomplish great things are filled with a sense of wonder, the mystery of life, the beauty of life. These two types of people spell the difference between the magnetic leaders then and those who are not magnetic and not even leaders. There's a story about a man who went out duck hunting, and he shot a duck, and his dog jumped out of the boat and ran over the water and picked up the duck and ran back and put it into the boat. The man stared at this thing. He thought, well, this is impossible. He shot another duck, and the dog jumped out and ran over the water again and brought the duck back. And the man thought, I must be losing my mind. I've got to have a witness for this. So he couldn't do any more that day, and he went home. The next day he went out again with a friend as a witness. And he shot a duck, and the dog jumped out of the boat and ran and picked up the duck, and the man looked at his friend to see what how his friend would react. And his friend was just looking very naturally. And the man thought, I must be losing my mind. And so this happened again, and the dog ran across the water. And finally the man couldn't stand the suspense any longer. He turned to his friend and he said, didn't you see what that dog did? The man said, yeah, the stupid animal can't swim. Well, so many people are like that even when confronted with what one would have to call a miracle, they call it just an average thing. They're unwilling to admit that anything is really wonderful. They think that science gives them that justification for explaining everything in pedestrian terms. John Keats wrote in one of his poems, there was a rainbow once in heaven, and now it is listed in the category of common things. Well, such people never really, not seeing wonders, they can't create wonders. Whereas a person who really looks at things, and the best answer to those who think that they're being scientific by their totally pedestrian look at things, their wish to make everything seem common and mundane, is a glimpse at the lives of great scientists. And you will find the great scientists, as opposed to those laboratory specialists who are analyzing chemicals in tubes, you will find that all of them have this sense of discovery, of wonder. Einstein said that this is really the hallmark of all scientific discovery, a sense of awe and wonder before the universe. And so we see that in every field of action, even in that which seems the most devoted to common sense and down-to-earth practical reason, in every field, in fact, those people who accomplish great things are, first of all, magnetic. Yes, we've talked about that by now. That should be the given. But they also have this sense of wonder. And in that sense of wonder, it's almost inescapable that people will come to acknowledge that there's a higher power at work in their lives. That somehow they don't know what it is that makes them do the right thing at the right time. They know that there's something somehow guiding and arranging things. This has happened to everybody probably at one time or another, but the pedestrian mind will try to explain it away that, well, I probably read about the idea in a book, or somebody suggested it, or it just happened, or it was just a coincidence, or whatever reason they might come up with for not facing the challenge of a much greater universe out there than they're willing to look at. They want to keep their little world tight and snug around them, where a man of courage, a woman of courage, will go out into the night and face those stars, infinite billions of light years away, and say, how grand, how wonderful, and how small I am before that, and what can I receive in my contemplation of that great mystery. And people who think that way are the ones who develop that kind of charisma, that kind of magnetism that makes people want to follow in this great adventure of discovery, of development, of creativity that is the essence of magnetic leadership. So try to, whatever you do, try to refer it always up to a higher power. Don't think, I've got to solve it all myself. I've got to do it all. Anybody who, think of it this way. It's sort of like the strings on a string instrument, a violin, let's say. Suppose you didn't have the violin as a sounding board. Suppose you only had the strings strung between 2 points, stretched between 2 points. You could play a bow over them and they'd give a little sort of a squeaky sound, but they wouldn't give the tone that you get when you've got the sounding board of the violin beneath it, reinforcing it. And so it is that a human being, when he's only thinking in terms of I've got to do it and I've got to use my own reason and I've got to solve everything, and doesn't acknowledge a greater reality, you will find that that kind of person, what he does also is thin. Whereas a person who recognizes a much greater reality, somehow in tune with that reality, receives inspirations, receives energy. Mind you, even the energy in your body that we're talking of generating is not just the energy you get from eating a good meal. It's an energy field that's all around you in the universe. We draw on that energy if we seek to live by it, and we close ourselves off from it to the extent that we refuse to admit its existence. So when I speak of a higher power, I could also call it a greater power, a greater reality. Whatever it is, the essence of magnetic leadership is to recognize what a small part you are of that greater reality, and how in attunement with that, listening to it, receiving from it, how your own capacity for leadership and for accomplishment can be increased 1,000-fold.